Okay, welcome to this section 30, Karen Armstrong, Enlightenment, Ontology Analysis. Let's read it. But the new Buddha could not save the world vicariously. Every single creature would have to put the Buddha's program into practice to achieve its own enlightenment. He could not do it for them. Yet at first it seemed that the Buddha, as we must now call Gautama, had decided against preaching the Dharma that alone could save his fellow creatures. He would have often been known as Shakyamuni, the silent one from the Republic of Sakya, because the knowledge he had acquired was ineffable and could not be described in words. Yet throughout the Ganges region, people were longing for a new spiritual vision, especially in the cities. This became clear. The Pali texts tell us almost immediately after the Buddha's enlightenment, when two passing merchants called Tapusa and Baluka, who had been informed of the great event by one of the gods, came to the Buddha and paid homage to him. They became his first lay followers. Yet despite this initial success, the Buddha was still reluctant. His Dharma was too difficult to explain. He told himself the people would not be prepared to undergo the arduous yogic and moral disciplines that it required. Far from wishing to renounce their craving, most people positively relished their attachments and would not want to hear his message of self-abandonment. If I taught the Dharma, the Buddha decided, people would not understand it and would be exhausted and disappointed for me. So is Armstrong importing in the end her own theological baggage when she says, but the new Buddha could not save the world vicariously? The passage, while being informed by her Christian theology, suggesting her background thinking was that Jesus' death was a vicarious death. So he does something for others. And the Buddha is saying he could not do what Jesus maybe is doing. However, this ignores the idea of vicarious help in Buddhist Pure Land Buddhism. And she doesn't really deal with that. Does Armstrong again reflect Theravada without realizing it or just not caring? She says every single creature would put the Buddha's program, Gautama's program, into practice to achieve its own enlightenment. He could not do it for them. So this is a Theravada version of Buddha Dharma. It's certainly not Mahayana Dharma. However, she seems to pass over describing the three transic insights typical of accounts of the Buddha's enlightenment. Nor are there the metaphors of the other shore, the top of the mountain, nor are there the analogies of the release from prison or the release from debt. This does seem to be a curious omission. Is Armstrong aware or not of the significance of renunciation and the difficulty, elitism of Theravada Dharma? She says that yet at first it seemed to the Buddha we must now call Gautama have decided against preaching the Dharma that alone could save his fellow creatures. That the Buddha in this is the sage or the Muni of the Shakya tribe. Okay, that's a Mahayana way of talking about the Buddha, not a Theravada. That he is the silent one. This is a folk story that it was a long time before he taught, is an unusual claim. Perhaps it has precedent in Mahayana. We might refer to the flower sermon, the story of the origin of Buddhist Zen teaching, which the Buddha remains silent. He transmits perfect, direct wisdom to the disciple Mahakasyapa. In typical more traditional, classical Buddhist account, the Buddha only remains silent for a couple of weeks or a couple of days, and then he starts teaching that it might be a longer period of time is a folk story, a folk account, not really in the Pali Canon. Is Armstrong now showing us her axial age thinking? Often he would be known as Shakyamuni, the silent one, the Republic of Shaka, because of the knowledge he had acquired was ineffable and could not be described in words. Very big world, big history, axial age, moment of revolution from simplicity to complexity by a mystical, ill-defined, spiritual, supernatural thing. Armstrong, in her book, argues that that there were others who were axial aged people, Socrates and Confucius and even Jesus. And these people are the heroes of the everyman yearning for revolution, change, for big history. So in the text, when she says about merchants, who are these merchants and what is their significance? Two passing merchants called Tapusa and Baluka. Tapusa and Baluka are the first two lay disciples of the Buddha. The first account of Tapusa and Baluka appears in the Vinaya of the Tipitaka. Well done, Armstrong, where they offer the Buddha his first meal after enlightenment, take refuge in the Dharma while the Sangha was still not established, and become the Buddha's first disciples. But they don't find the Sangha. What later elitist asceticism might this be reflecting when she says, yet despite this initial success, the Buddha was still reluctant. His Dharma was too difficult to explain, he told himself. The people had not prepared to undergo the arduous yogic moral disciplines that it required. So this reflects the Theravada tendency to be elitist, perhaps even ascetic, and perhaps echoing the Buddha's own experience that he came from. Yeah, other traditions, Mahayana especially, and Pure Land within that, have a different view that Buddha nature is available to all of us without such arduous practice that the Theravada commit to. Armstrong, however, is not clear what she means by this story. So, is the historical context she gives too little, too late to be meaningful? Is her Buddha quote just more Theravada? She says, wishing to renounce their craving, most people positively relish their attachments, would not want to hear the message of self-abandonment. So this, and then she goes on, the Buddha decided people would not understand it, would be exhausting and disappointing for me if I taught the Dharma. If I taught the Dharma, people would not understand it and would be exhausting. So what is the historical context she gives? So this was the message of Theravada, which failed to transmit beyond India to China and Tibet because it was elitist, it was male-orientated, and it wasn't easy. The Mahayana version did. And this reflects later Buddhist hagiographic, especially Theravada ideas of the Buddha, but not Mahayana. When the word Dharma, by the way, means refuge or teaching. Okay, so this was section 30.